Today in our society, there's a movement where people of all different backgrounds are working together to confront sexual assault. A majority of child victims are 12 through 17. Of victims under the age of 18, 34% of victims of sexual assault and rape are under age 12.
Consent is what we need to discuss, but what is it though?
Consent means that you give permission to engage in, whether it's with another person, whether it's a sexual relationship. It means, yes, I agree to do this.
Skip it. I'm not interested. Let's go.
What would it take for you to see things my way?
We talked to E and Shanti from a group called Force.
Force Upsetting Rape Culture is an artist and activist collective. We do national campaigns to disrupt the culture of rape and to promote a counterculture of consent.
Hi, Minnie. How about a little... You clown.
Consent is the freedom to say yes or no without negative consequences. So consent also includes, like, I can say yes to something and I cannot face a negative consequence for it. When we think of a case study, say, the girls who were abused by R. Kelly, there are people who would say these young people consented to a certain type of relationship with him. But we would say that within the structures of power that surrounded him, there would have been significant negative consequences for doing anything else. So in that way, those cannot be called consensual relationships.
I should go.
Don't go, please. Don't go. Don't go. Don't go. Don't go.
There's a misconception about consent that it's extra, or that it's super tedious, or that it makes your love life less sexy or less pleasurable. And there's this idea, oh, shouldn't we be able to just sense each other? To me, consent is more complicated. The ideal is that it makes significantly more pleasurable relationships. We all exist with more pleasure when there's less abuse.
If we don't learn about consent, then it makes it difficult for people to learn to respect each other as sovereign individuals that have control over their own bodies. So when we don't learn about consent and we just say, well, I want you to do this, or I want this from you, and what you have to say about it doesn't really matter.
Consent isn't something to be taken lightly, but it's such a complex issue that it feeds into what we see rape culture as today. Consent cannot be assumed in every situation.
Rape culture is a set of actions, cultural beliefs, and systems that tell certain people that they don't have control over their bodies and that rape and abuse are inevitable.
Hey, guys. Hey! Hi, girls.
Schools don't teach about consent as they should. Most classes are brief, not as detailed, and geared more towards females.
I think that youth need to learn consent culture from the get-go. Babies and young people, like very, very young people, are seeing the world and trying to emulate it and trying to figure out how it works. So we're teaching youth from a very, very young age that they don't have power over their bodies whatsoever, that they see adults treating each other in ways that are abusive, that are then called love. So to me, you can intervene in that as soon as possible.
I knew it. I knew it.
Oh, you knew what?
What I mean by implied consent is a cultural idea that if someone is showing you certain signals, if you're in a certain context, someone's asked you out on a date, that therefore sex is pre-approved. And certain types of sex are pre-approved, and certain advances within a sexual experience are pre-approved. The assumption that once you have said yes to one thing, you mean yes to many things.
George, help me, please.
Just turn around, McFly, and walk away.
The younger generation has the ability to shape and change society around our values, but our voices must be utilized in the proper way to make the change.
For young people, it's just so important to believe that things exist that you haven't experienced, and believe that a lot of good things exist that you haven't experienced, and it's worth trying to find that for yourself.
I think it's up to each individual person to find the networks of people who make them feel safe and seen, because that's where these cultures of safety come from, is individual microcosms of, I see you and I believe you. Let's do this together. I'm listening to what you want. I want high schoolers to know that they're worthy of healthy, consensual, pleasurable, beautiful love at any age, and that consent should not be something you age into, and everyone is worthy of love without abuse. It's possible, it exists, and we can fight for it.